Welcome back to another episode of Coming Out. I am your host, Gabriel Páez. Today we have Robin Peguero. Robin Peguero is running for the 27th Florida Congressional District Democratic primary.
Yep.
Welcome, Robin. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you for having me again. This is lovely.
Yes. I wanted to have you back because I've seen your momentum, and you really have, from when I first interviewed to now, I've seen you like blossom and
thank you.
And take us through that time period, you know.
Yeah.
And for some others that don't know who you are, just give us a little brief.
Yeah.
Why you're, what it is that you're doing.
Well, I have been running in this district to be a representative for a year now, and I've just been putting in a lot of hard work, and it's been my life's work being a public servant. So for those who don't know me, I'm a son of immigrants and veterans to this country. My mom and dad came here with nothing, just the clothes on their backs, didn't know the language, and the first thing they did was enlist in the U.S. Army to serve this country, sacrifice potentially themselves and their lives because they wanted so much to become a part of this country. That's my origin story. That's what motivates me every single day to continue to do public service. So I was a homicide prosecutor in this community for 7 years, keeping our streets safe. I was a lawyer on the January 6th committee, making sure to defend our democracy. And I've worked in Congress all the way from a junior staffer as a 21-year-old kid all the way up to chief of staff. I've pretty much done it all in Congress, even been the mini congressman as they consider the chief of staff. And now I just want to make sure that we have an actual person in Congress representing us, looking out for middle class, working class people and the immigrants in this community. And it's been an incredible year. And really the most important thing is I've just been listening to my neighbors and friends, hear what their concerns are, and make sure that I'm reflecting back their voice.
Experience matters. Most definitely. We have this Congresswoman.
Yeah.
Really hasn't done much.
No.
I think the district needs, out of all 26, 27, 28, I think 27 needs major help. Mm-hmm. Not that 28 doesn't, not to take anything away from them, but 27 really needs somebody with experience. And I really feel that at this point we need somebody that can just hit the ground running. And like I've told you many times, I think that you are that candidate. What do you see your first 100 days as?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think, when Maria Elvira Salazar was elected 6 years ago, we had a newscaster who had no public service experience whatsoever. Look what that's gotten us over the past 6 years. She's introduced zero legislation, and every bill that she puts in gets ignored by her party. And her party, especially on immigration, is moving more to the right. The president's trying to take away naturalized citizenship, American-born citizenship. And so she really has no voice for us in Congress, unfortunately. For me, what I think the first 100 days looks like is I'm always very realistic with folks because I've been there, been on the Hill. They ask me, okay, we're talking about all these investments in childcare and housing and middle class and working class people. Are you going to get to pass that? Just you by yourself in the first 100 days? And I tell them, no, that's not the way the system works, unfortunately. I'll be 1 out of 435. One thing you can count on for sure in the first 100 days, I'm going to use a bullhorn to make sure that I'm using the bully pulpit to really speak out against the abuses of this administration in our communities in terms of economy and immigrants. And right now we don't have a congressperson that does that. The second thing I'll do is oversight. I've helped Congress people put on committee hearings. I co-led one of the committee hearings for the January 6th committee on the corruption of the Department of Justice. We will finally have subpoena power if we take over the House, which I feel very strongly we will. We'll finally have subpoena power. We get to haul all those administration officials before us to ask them and grill them about what they're doing to this country. And I did that as part of the January 6th committee, interviewed high-level Trump officials like the Secretary of the Army about why the heck the National Guard took so long to respond on January 6th. And as a prosecutor, I have that experience of cross-examining witnesses when they're lying to you, and I would love to be able to represent this community in those hearings. So that's two major things right there. Speaking out, using my office to really defend people in our community, oversight, finally, subpoena power over this administration, and then we can also pass legislation as the House. And some of the things that I really want to work on are trying to make sure that we're focusing on your pocketbooks. I want to make sure that every single bill I introduce in Congress has an economic impact statement.
And I'm going to stop you right there because the first time you came, you said that, and that was like what sold me on you.
I appreciate it.
And I'm glad that you're still using that. So talk to us more about that.
Yeah, look, the thing is, there are members that are Maria Elvira Salazar who do messaging bills, right? And it's just to pat themselves on the back. It does nothing for the American people. It's just like, we're going to pass the sentiment that, we love democracy. Great. I'll vote for that. I love democracy too. But it doesn't do anything. And that costs taxpayer money. It costs money to keep the lights on and staff members on the House for you to vote for such things. You got to make sure that you're using your time to actually help middle class, working class people. And so if I have a focus in my first 100 days, in my first term, it's going to be completely the economy and middle class, working class people. And so, and there's a lot of stuff that you can do through education where you can have a little statement there where it says, this is how much money it's going to give back to the district. This is how much money it's going to put in your pocket. The savings, right? The tax benefit that you're going to get. Because I want people to know that that's where the government should be focusing its attention. And that's something you pick up, just having been on the Hill, knowing how legislation works, having helped Congress people write legislation. I can be congressman on day one. I know where all the bathrooms are, I like to say.
Okay, so you have that ability to legislate, right? Yeah. Now being on the legislative side of local government, I see the importance of really how impactful legislation can be. Mm-hmm. You take us through any legislation you would like to see. Yeah. Like, how do you form it? How do you structure it?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, we need to repeal the tax giveaways and tax buyouts that we gave to corporations and billionaires in the big, beautiful bill that our Congresswoman voted for. Middle class, working class people are often paying a higher effective tax rate than people at the very, very top. And I like to say affordability is squeezing not just folks who are working 2 or 3 jobs, and it is, but also people who consider themselves comfortable, who are upper middle class, even people who make over $1 million, who pay 40% of their check in taxes, and then they get told, well, we don't have enough for SNAP benefits. We don't have enough to keep Social Security solvent, and they wonder themselves, how can that possibly be? And they're patriotic, they're happy to pay, but they want their money to go to something, to the people who are less fortunate. And it's because people at the very, very, very top, their system is rigged so that they effectively pay almost nothing. And so we got to reinvest those tax relief cuts in middle class and working class people. We got to put an end to the Trump tariff that is just new taxes on the American population. In this moment of great economic insecurity, it's insane to me that we are increasing taxes on middle class, working class people. I have a proposal on my website, an anti-corruption plan, which I do think in the long term will save us money too. And this is what this would do. It would stop members of Congress from trading stocks while they're in office. My view is, if you want to, get rich as a private citizen, and of course, buying stock, go ahead. God bless you. This is the United States of America. But if you want to become a public servant, why are you using your position to get yourself rich? The point is, you need to be focusing on helping families, not yourself. And we just saw with Maria Elvira Salazar, she just bought a bunch of defense company stocks. These are companies that appear before her on the Foreign Relations Committee. We're in the middle of a war where a lot of these companies are participating, and she's voting to extend that war and personally enriching herself. So I would disallow that. It would have a term limit on Congress people, so they can only serve up to 12 years, up to 6 separate terms. I think that's long enough for you to get your feet wet, learn the job, pass legislation, but not become entrenched in the system 30, 40 years until you're in your 70s, until you're in your 80s, and only care about preserving your power as opposed to really representing the people. Overturn Citizens United so we can get dark money out of politics. These are all things that are important.
That is the worst. Yeah. Citizens United really does. Tell us, how do we reverse that?
Yeah. Look, some people think it's going to take a constitutional amendment. I think that we can codify it into law as members of Congress. We need to vote to make sure that money in politics isn't what makes the day. In the end of the day, public financing of campaigns. That would be great. Making Election Day a national holiday so that people who work 2 or 3 jobs can actually participate. Making gerrymandering illegal. We saw that here in the state of Florida. We got to preserve our democracy. And I think that's one of the first things I would love to do, to vote for. And I have an anti-corruption plan that focuses on those things.
The other day we were talking to a server, and he said, "Oh no, because I got out of my job and now I'm here, and then I have to go to another job." And the guy was working 3 jobs.
Yes.
And I was like, wow. And it's not enough still so how can we change that? What can we do for individuals other than your economic platforms and your economic, including some bills and stuff like that? How do we bring it back to where a person can feel comfortable working one solid job or
it goes back to housing. I just think that's where you build wealth in this country. That's your first sort of statement of financial security, is being able to own a home. And my parents, when they came to this country, they were able through, after they served, my father was a school teacher in the public school system teaching Spanish to elementary school kids. My mom was a mail carrier, working really hard in the Florida sun, carrying heavy mail, although she had arthritis and it worsened her condition. So these are two really hardworking people who raised me. And what I love about this country is that they couldn't get those jobs back home, not good, secure, financially stable jobs, but they came here and they were able to learn the language, they were able to work hard, and they were able to own a home in Hialeah. I'm actually going to go drive by it today to go see how it looks. I grew up there from 5 all the way through high school, and that is unheard of today on those salaries. Even people with a lot more money than my parents, mail carrier, school teacher, can't afford a home any part of Miami. Not Hialeah. You gotta start leaving town, unfortunately, to really be able to do that. So that's what we got to focus on. Those people who are working so hard in this moment, and they see their gas prices go through the roof, in part because we've gotten into this wrong-headed war in Iran. It's like everything this president and this congresswoman do is just adding insult to injury, just pouring salt into the wound. And so the government has a role to play in helping incentivize the building of actual, real, affordable housing. Not more units in Brickell that are way too expensive that sit empty. Real housing that is focused on people who can actually attain it and reach it. And so I think it goes always back to that. The minimum wage is another one to help that person who's working 3 jobs. The idea that with inflation, we haven't raised minimum wage in over a decade since the time of Obama, which now is a long time ago. That's insane. We got to do it.
I found that out there. I realized that the other day, and I was like, "Wow, that's amazing."
It's insanity. It's insanity that the $7 is you can't get by with that anymore. And so we have to raise
even at $15 an hour, it's $32,000 a year. Well, I don't know who could really afford to live in Miami. $32,000 before taxes.
And remember, that was in 2020 when the presidential candidates were saying like that. They were coming out for a $15 minimum wage. Right. We're now in 2026. So you're right. Like if even $15 is barely anything, we need to pay people a living wage in this country. We can do it. We are the richest country in the world. That's what we got to remind ourselves. We have a society that is built so much on helping each other. It is a capitalistic society. We want everybody to advance. We want there to be billionaires, to reinvest in the economy, to create jobs. God bless them. We just need to, everybody, pay our fair share just so that we can together advance as a society.
One of the things that concerns me also is Medicare and Social Security. How do we protect those, which some say it's going to be bankrupt in a couple of years and some say it's fully funded. So yeah. Where are we? How do we save it?
First, we got to play defense because there are people on the Republican side, including our own Senator Rick Scott, who put up plans about sunsetting it, pushing the retirement age by a bunch of years, or investing it in the stock market so that we gamble with people's money. Social Security in particular is your own damn money that you've put into the system for 30 or 40 years. We made a promise to you when you started working that this was going to be yours during retirement. We have to hold up that end of the bargain. We can't push it off, say, oh, no, we were not being serious, 5 more years or what have you, or gamble it away or sunset it, none of that. And so we have to protect against those attacks from the Republicans. But yes, also there's this concern about how do we keep it solvent? And my issue is always when we're talking about things that are promised to our community, to our seniors who have, we all love, who've given us so much and who we deserve to have some dignity and respect in their retirement, it's a question of like, well, how are we going to pay for it? No one ever asks that about the war that is ongoing. So much money that we're spending on a needless war. So much money we spent on tax breaks and tax giveaways to billionaires and corporations. That is not revenue neutral. That is deficit exploding. You have to pay for that, right? You have to take that money, those tax cuts, and take it away from certain programs. And so the money is there. It's just about our priorities, our values, and they're all wrong. If we care about our seniors, that's where the war money should be going. That's where the tax cuts for the billionaires and corporations should be going.
How do you convince a constituent that comes from, electing the same people over and over and over again to make that change?
Yeah, I think the country, we see it in elections, that thankfully Democrats have won. A newer, younger generation of leadership is winning, sometimes against incumbents, against people who have been in office for 30, 40 years, because people are tired of doing the same thing and expecting different results. We, again, went with a newscaster with no public service experience 6 years ago, and a lot of people like that idea of let's just put up the same sort of person up against, Maria Elvira Salazar. And here's what I say to that. It's, number one, whenever you try to do like a kind of imitation, Maria Elvira Salazar light, someone, kind of like the real thing, people are just going to vote for the real thing. They never pick the imitation. They just say like, well, let's just go with the person who has been there and fits that profile. We need someone with stark differences with Maria Elvira Salazar. I actually have more experience in Congress than she does because I've worked there longer than her 6 years that she's been there. And I'm completely different. I just feel that
sometimes we need to elect people who are prepared. Yeah. And here we've elected with Maria Elvira someone who, okay, we gave her a chance, an opportunity. Then she got reelected, and then now she's gotten reelected again. And the results aren't there.
No.
So how do you convince the seniors or get engaged, someone of new blood to come and really make that change and vote for you?
Yeah, I've been just making the case on the campaign trail. I've been working really hard. I've been making sure we're canvassing around the community. I've done so many interviews, most of them in Spanish language interviews, more than my primary opponent. I want people to see that I'm a workhorse. And I think if they look back on my history, they can see that that's what I am. And you want somebody who is not going to Washington, either, out of retirement, someone who is not going to fight for this seat for many years to come. I'm going to work really hard from day one because it's what I've been doing my whole life. I've given my life to this community and working for the public interest. It's what matters to me most. And so I tell seniors, I tell young folks in particular, we got to do something different and trust in voters. I think that's another thing. People want to vote strategically. I hear a lot of folks who tell me, well, I love you. I think that you'd be really experienced and prepared. But what are other people going to think? Who are they going to vote for? They might want someone more like Maria Elvira Salazar, the more traditional route, And what I tell them is people respond to competency. They respond to experience. They respond to passion and youth and vigor and energy. And I am getting a lot of young people excited about this campaign. I have first-time voters who are canvassing for my campaign every single day. And it really moves me. I'm really humbled by it. But that spark you need that we're seeing across the country, it's not going to come by doing the same thing. It's by getting newer folks involved and a newer generation of leadership involved.
I haven't even thought about this one, but this new wing of the Democratic Party coming with socialism and democratic socialism. I know that's not the type of socialism that we're accustomed to. It's very different, but how do you distinguish yourself from that?
Look, this community is so
because it's a difficult word to be campaigning here in Miami with that attached. So why would you even want to go there? But how do you differentiate yourself?
I call myself a democratic capitalist, and it's because I strongly believe in the market. I strongly believe in the fact that that's the reason my parents came here. And so many of our parents and immigrants, they came here, some out of, the situation back in their countries being unsafe, but a lot also just for economic opportunity. We're the best and richest country in the world because you can advance, you can work hard, and there's no limit to that. You can really find financial security for your family. There's almost a promise that each generation is going to do a little bit better, and it isn't a promise of equality of results, and that's important, right? It isn't a promise that we're all going to have the same things. In fact, it's the opposite. It's equality of opportunity. It's that everyone's going to have a shot at the American dream, right? And so having really strongly believed that, having grown up in Hialeah, knowing the horrors of people who have lived under socialist and communist countries, for me, I just think this system that we have is great, right? But we're also generous. We're generous people. That doesn't mean that the government has no role to play, because Elon Musk, he's the first trillionaire, I think I just heard, he used the roads that we paid. Right, he had to get to work. He still gets to work, I assume, every day. He uses the roads that we all paid for with our tax dollars, right? He uses the police when he's in trouble. He uses the firefighters when he's in trouble or his house is under fire. We all need each other. We can't, in a society, become billionaires and do well for ourselves without the help of each other, without a government to have us get together and have some certain safety net. And so that's all what it's about. And I'm happy for anybody who is part of the pro-democracy wing of the Democratic Party. Different regions are going to have their different representatives, and that's what's beautiful about America. Here, this is the type of Democrat that I am, and I feel like many people will respond to and want.
How do you connect with MPAs?
Oh, important, because in this district, they're about a third and almost like leading in Florida. Most people are so turned off by both parties. And what's sad is that we have a closed primary system in this state. So there's so many NPAs who come up to me and tell me, I'd love to vote for you. And I say, well, in the general, but you can't yet. And they don't have like a home in the primary. They can still vote. You should vote. You'll have certain options on your ballot, including for judges. But so many of the top ticket items they won't be able to vote for or have a say as to who their nominee is. And I think that's horrible, because these are folks who have strong opinions. It's not that they don't have opinions. It's not that they, don't care. It's just that they don't feel like they have a home in either of the two parties. And what I tell them is, I'm not going to be beholden to any party. I feel like that's the problem with Maria Elvira Salazar, is that she wants to talk out of both sides of her mouth, is that she wants to, say Trump is, the Lincoln on immigration, and, not, give him her vote for the big, beautiful bill, and not even try to get any concessions on immigration. Has to be a tried and true Republican, lockstep all the way, while people in our community are saying, wait, hold up. Cubans are being deported more than, any other president has deported more Cubans than any other president in the history of the United States. Venezuelans, their TPS is being revoked. Haitian, their TPS are being revoked. Like, what are you doing? Our community is suffering. You need to speak back, but you can't because of the party system. So what I tell them, look, I'm going to be a representative for the people, not for my party. I'll do what's right, and when my party's heading in the wrong direction, I'll tell them. I think that's critical and important.
Our community's suffering so much with TPS. I mean, I'm sure in your district you have plenty of Haitians. I'm sure you have plenty of Venezuelans, Honduran. What do you tell those people?
Yeah.
And
I think the hardest thing for them was, there's an administration that's obviously targeting them, and a representative in Congress who is powerless, does nothing, says nothing. But then there's the Supreme Court. To see them go on the side of, sending them back, when it's unsafe, and when they built a life and homes here, it's cruel. It's inhumane. And so I can see why they might feel turned off by the system, might feel despair. But we got to keep fighting. And I am optimistic. I believe in the spirit of this community. I believe that we're going to see a change in this community come August and then come November. I tell them to hold out hope, because there are folks, you mentioned there are Haitians in the district. Not that many, actually, in this district. That doesn't matter to me. It isn't a calculation of politics,
Right. It doesn't really matter how many there is in your district, because in the surrounding area of your district, there's the biggest diaspora. So,
and anybody's suffering, right? It shouldn't be a political question, because I do see sometimes that Maria Elvira will talk about Venezuelans, but barely mention Haitians. And I think it's because in her mind, it's like, oh, I don't really need to. They're not a lot of part of my constituency. We need to be calling out what's right and moral regardless of the consequences. In fact, even if there's a political cost, I'm willing to lose a seat over what's important, over what's moral, over what's right. What's most important to me isn't getting elected. It's helping people in my community. Now, you need to get elected to help them, but again, if you betray your morals and your values, then what are you anymore? Like, why even get into this job?
And why do you think she is so like that?
Yeah.
You know, help me understand, because I have difficulties at times trying to understand her and why she's doing the things that she does when she says other things. You know, she goes on one side and she says, so that's why I call her Maria Mentira, because she says something and then 20 minutes later,
something completely different.
Help me understand that.
Yeah, one thing in Spanish sometimes, and another thing in English. She's, said she said to Charlie Kirk once, all of the people who came under the Biden administration need to go back, and that includes the Cubans who came after the July 11th protests, people who were fighting for democracy on that island. Highly, highly unpopular. She won't say it in Spanish, of course. So I putting aside that I don't want to be a psychologist here, do some armchair psychology. I think honestly, it's just the way the system morphs people who only care about power into trying to maintain that power.
So it's more about power over a country.
I think so.
It just becomes so unfair and so unrealistic, really.
And one way to guard against that, because every politician is, running for office, every candidate is going to say, well, I'm going to look out for you, I'm not going to look out for myself. Don't just buy people's words. You have to look at a record. This is why, I feel confident being the only Democrat in this race with an actual public record. You know where I stand. There's no way that I'm not going to fight Donald Trump. It's literally the first thing on my resume is a January 6th investigator. I was pardoned. Everybody on the January 6th committee was pardoned by President Biden because we stood up to Trump. So
you were pardoned too?
Technically, yes.
Oh, great.
I'm not listed anywhere, but the pardon is for all staff members, including of the January 6th committee. And at the time, we thought it was silly. We didn't want that.
Right.
We were just doing our jobs. But now looking at the way that this president goes after people politically with the Department of Justice, it was sort of, smart for President Biden to think of that. But that's to say, when you have a record of fighting for democratic policies for the past 20 years, you know exactly where I'll stand. You don't have to guess. There's no guesswork. If you're worried about someone going to Washington to enrich themselves, I worked really hard. I went to public schools in Hialeah. Ending up at Harvard College and Harvard Law School. And after each opportunity there, my classmates went off to make a lot of money, and I didn't. After college, I went to work in Congress, making $24,000 a year, surviving off of that in DC, which is wild. After law school and taking on a bunch of loans, I came back here to Miami to be a prosecutor, making $40,000 a year. I had the opportunity to make money for myself, and every point I've chosen not to because I care about this community and serving it. That's the type of thing. That's why you can just look at someone's record, and that helps you see what they'll do in the future. And why with people like my primary opponent without any record whatsoever, either fighting in democratic policies or politics or serving the public, you just don't know. You just don't know. It's always a risk. It's always a question mark. You just have to, buy their words. But with me, I have actual action behind the words that you can take to the bank.
And that's what I like about you, to be honest with you. I know what I'm getting from day one. It has not, and the other thing is that it has not changed from when we first spoke to today. Yeah. You've pretty much said the same message. Yeah. A little just more detailed. Yeah. But you continue to be a Democrat, looking for solutions and issues that we are faced locally here, which is immigration is the biggest one, and healthcare and all that. So that you're a capitalist Democrat you've said it once, you said it again today. Yeah. So I like that your message is so consistent. So I have no problem with electing you.
I appreciate that.
I feel that, I hope that people see that when they see Robin, they're getting what's there. Understand? And we know, and we don't have to go through this. We're gonna give you a grace period, right? because you deserve it, right? Because you've been elected. But I don't think that grace period is gonna phase you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Look, I've been, since I was 16 years old, vocal about my politics, about democratic politics, about caring for my community. That's when I first volunteered for the governor's race in I think it was 2002 for Janet Reno at the time. I haven't been neutral or silent or on the sidelines. I've had actual skin in the game. As we received threats as being a staff member of the January 6th committee. There was two people assigned to filtering through the threats every single day. I was told on my first day when I was getting my badge and everything, how did you get to work? And I said, I walk. I was actually living really, really close by. And he said, okay, well, every day you should take a different route to work in case you're being followed. Like, this is serious. This is serious stuff that I have sacrificed and served this country in public service. And I just want to continue doing it. But I think it's important that, we have someone who has that sort of record, who, as you said, has been consistent all his life as to what matters to me. So you'll always know where I stand.
Our time has come to an end.
Okay.
Leave your message with us, of hope and of, getting you elected and getting you across that finish line.
Well, what I want to say is I'm optimistic. I know that right now it feels like everything is working against us. And it's true. The system is entirely rigged for corporations, for billionaires, for the corrupt. We saw that with Epstein, for the powerful. We want someone who's going to look out for us, for the rest of us. We're really struggling in this moment. Middle class, working class people like my parents who are just working hard and just want a shot at the American dream. And I am so humbled that I could come from two parents who emigrated here without knowing the language to being able to go from Hialeah to Harvard to now running for U.S. Congress. It's really a dream come true. But I'm going to work hard. That's what I've done my whole life. That's what I'll continue to do. And so I just really hope I can earn your vote. What we need right now is just folks out in the streets knocking doors with me. I'm out there all the time. So come join me, PegueroForMiami.com. Follow me on social media, Peguero for Miami, and become part of the team. And let's show the country that Miami, we're upset with the way that things are going and we're not going to take it anymore.
Great. And on that note, I love the fact that it's from Hialeah to Harvard. On that note, we say goodbye. And until next time, thank you.